go to Georgefloyd just for a second? I know. Can we have a break? No, you cannot. Just for a second. One transgression I think is unfortunate in this circumstance. Dr. David Fowler, retired forensic pathologist, called by Chauvin's defense during the murder trial, chief medical examiner for the state of Maryland for 17 years, testified in his opinion the manner of Floyd's death should be classified as undetermined rather than a homicide. He said, I quote on stand, "In my opinion, Mr. Floyd has a sudden cardiac arrhythmia due to his atherosclerotic and hypertensive heart disease during his restraint and subdual by the police, notwithstanding the fentanyl and the methamphetamine in the system, COVID diagnosis, etc. and so forth." Okay. Medical experts called by the prosecution have said the low oxygen levels caused by the restraint were the cause of Floyd's death, as we know, given the outcome. Chauvin's defense has suggested that Floyd's heart condition and drugs in his system were primary factors. Okay. As we know, the jury didn't believe this, but now hundreds of doctors nationwide have signed a letter initiated by former DC medical examiner Roger Mistral, calling for a review of Dr. Fowler's tenure at the Maryland Medical Examiner's Office, which he led for 17 years, and a review of his medical license. What? I understand reviewing all the cases. Hey, look at the jury. Look what he said. His opinion. Let's look back at all the cases he had where he came to the determination that the police were not at fault. Sure, let's do that. Fine. Let's also determine whether he should be a doctor. What? That's going above and beyond. He's a retired pathologist. I'm sure his license is active or not, but that is just, maybe that's why they think they can get away with such a ridiculous suggestion. But I'll explain how ridiculous this is. Just what is the end? Is he racist? Is he pro-police? Let's talk about this just for a second. Specifically, the letter urged an assessment of the office's findings in cases involving deaths in police custody during that time when he was the medical examiner in Maryland for 17 years. Soon after receiving the letter, which also raised ethical and professional questions about Dr. Fowler's testimony, senior medical Maryland officials said that they would undertake the recommended review. The review should focus particularly on what was the not uncommon practice. This is all part of this. Some of this is from an opinion letter to the Washington Post. The review should focus on what was the not uncommon practice of Maryland Medical Examiner's Office to classify deaths in police custody as accidental or undetermined. The concern, Dr. Mitchell suggests, is that the inappropriate conclusions may have been inappropriate, reached when homicide would have been the correct finding. A possible case in point. I don't like the phrasing of this. The preface is very odd. A possible case in point. In the last full year of Dr. Fowler's tenure as Maryland's medical examiner, his office found that the 2018 death of a 19-year-old unarmed African-American boy, Anton Black, during a run-in with the police was accidental, concluding that the cause of death was not homicide, but sudden cardiac death, exacerbated by underlying heart issues, bipolar disorder, and the stress of his struggle with 3 white police officers and a white civilian. A review of police body camera footage of that incident is unnerving, reminiscent of Floyd's death. Officers in the eastern town of Greensboro flattened Black on the ground for 6 minutes, handcuffed, face down. Watch the whole video. I did. I was curious. I wanted to watch. I did. Anton did not complain about not being able to breathe or anything like that. He said, "I love you" to my mother. His last words before he went to the ground. And then at some point between there, he stopped breathing. CPR was performed. Officers were very, very concerned about his well-being. They turned him on his side. The recovery position, a reference relative to the maximum restraint maneuver, which Officer Chauvin did not offer to George Floyd. But in this circumstance, knee on the neck and all, indeterminable, likely was not involved at all. Very unfortunate, but again, This is the strange and bizarre association. This is racial. The officers would not have done this if he was a white assailant. It's very bizarre, the race association. It's racial. I watched the whole video. I don't know what the officers could have done other than act sooner, the CPR. Watch the video. Talk shit in the comments, please. Go ahead. It's okay. I'm really curious. Watch the whole video of Anton Black's arrest. I did. I don't know where the violent racism is, the intent to do harm, according to the second was applying Minneapolis or Minnesota's murder in the second degree, intent to do harm. Negligence by not acting sooner? Perhaps. Perhaps. It's so disturbing that people like to paint this in not failure to be trained appropriately, which I think is the first thing that people can consider if they think that something's wrong, but race, which is so easy to do. And applying this to Dr. Derek Fowler. Derek? Did I say Derek? Is that correct? David, sorry. Because he simply was called by the defense as an expert witness. And this is why I think this is very disturbing. David Fowler determined that the officers involved in the Freddie Gray, Baltimore, Maryland death, reliable, black and white officers, liable in the death of a teenager who was black in police custody. So what the hell is this painting this bizarre portrait of this man as a racist? I think is disgusting. Disgusting. Guilt by association. You are part of the defense for an evil white police officer who's racist, and you should burn. We're going to destroy you. We're going to come after you. I think it's the Nuremberg trials. It's really, really frightening. It's so partisan. It's so strange. It's like